The holographic display floated in the air like a small universe. Tiny ships hung in the red mist of the nebula, frozen in time. Every student in the room leaned forward to watch. Even Professor Ven moved closer, his old eyes bright with curiosity. Taiho stood before the display, his heart pounding in his chest. General Kryn towered behind him, watching his every move. One mistake, one wrong word, and everything would be over. But Taiho had studied this battle 100 times. He knew every ship, every position, every movement. He knew this formation better than he knew his own face. "Your fleet was positioned here," Taiho said, pointing to the curved line of ships. "A crescent formation. Very classic. Very effective against a straightforward attack." "Correct," General Kryn said. His voice was cold. "Continue. The enemy fleet was here." Taiho pointed to the opposing ships. They were trapped between your crescent and the asteroid field behind them. They had nowhere to run. They had to fight through your line or die. Also correct. This is basic history. Every student knows this. Yes, sir. But here is what the history does not tell us. Taiho moved some of the ships around. What if the enemy commander had been smarter? What if, instead of trying to break through the center of your line, he had done this? Taiho took a small group of enemy ships and moved them to the left side of the display. They swung wide, away from the main battle, heading toward the edge of the crescent formation. "A flanking attack," someone in the class whispered. "Not just any flanking attack," Taiho said. "Look at the crescent formation. It is curved. The ships at the ends are far from the ships in the center. If you attack the left edge, the center cannot respond quickly. By the time they turn around, the flank has already fallen." General Kryn's eyes narrowed. His forearms uncrossed slowly. The enemy commander did not do this. He attacked the center, as expected. "Yes, sir." "You were lucky." The room gasped. No one called a Valorian general lucky. No one suggested that his victories were anything less than perfect skill. General Kryn stepped forward. His shadow fell over Taiho like a dark cloud. "Lucky?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "You think luck won that battle?" Taiho forced himself not to step back. "I think the enemy made a mistake. A big mistake. And I think if you use this formation again against a better enemy, you will lose." The silence that followed was the heaviest Taiho had ever felt. He could hear his own blood rushing in his ears. He could feel every eye in the room staring at him. He could see the anger building in General Kryn's pale eyes, but he did not take back his words. He could not. He believed he was right. "Human?" General Kryn said slowly. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have done for this galaxy? I have protected billions of lives. I have stopped wars that would have destroyed whole systems. And you, a child from a primitive world, dare to tell me that I was lucky? I am not saying you are a bad commander, sir." Taiho kept his voice calm. "I am saying this formation has a weakness. Weaknesses can be fixed, but only if we admit they exist. And you think you can fix my formation? You think you know better than me? I think I see something you missed. That is all." General Kryn stared at him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a predator who had found interesting prey. "Very well, human. You say my formation can be beaten. Prove it." He gestured at the display. "Run the simulation. Show me how the enemy should have attacked. Show this entire class what you think you know." Taiho nodded. He had prepared for this. Every night for the past 3 days, he had run this simulation over and over. He knew exactly what to do. He reached into the display and took control of the enemy fleet. His fingers moved quickly. giving orders to the holographic ships. They began to move. First, he sent a small group of fast ships toward the left flank. They were not meant to destroy anything. They were meant to distract, to pull the Valorian ships out of position. What is he doing? Someone in the class asked. Just watch, Hannah said quietly. She was the only one who did not look surprised. The distraction worked. The Valorian ships on the left flank turned to face the small attack. They moved away from the main formation. A gap appeared in the crescent. There, Tejo said, pointing at the gap. That is where the real attack comes. He sent the main enemy fleet straight into the gap. They poured through like water through a broken dam. The crescent formation, which had seemed so strong, suddenly looked weak. The Valorian ships were scattered. They could not support each other. They were being attacked from multiple directions at once. In the simulation, the Valorian fleet began to take heavy losses. Ship after ship blinked red and disappeared. The curved line that had seemed unbreakable was falling apart. This is, Professor Venn whispered, his eyes wide. This is remarkable. General Kryn said nothing. He watched the simulation with an expression that no one could read. His forehands had clenched into fists. The simulation ended. The holographic display showed the final result. In this version of the Battle of the Red Nebula, the enemy had won. General Kryn's fleet was destroyed. Tejo stepped back from the display. His hands were shaking. He had done it. He had proven his point. But he did not feel happy. He felt afraid. He had just humiliated the most powerful military commander in the galaxy. The classroom was completely silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. Everyone was watching General Kryn, waiting to see what he would do. The general stood motionless for what felt like an eternity. His pale eyes were fixed on the display, on the ruins of his fleet. His face showed no emotion at all. Then, slowly, he turned to look at Tejo. How? He asked. His voice was soft now, almost gentle. How did you see this? I have analyzed that battle 1,000 times. My advisors have studied it. The finest military minds in the Empire have reviewed it. None of them saw what you saw. How? Tejo thought about the question. How had he seen it? He was not smarter than a Valorian. He was not faster or stronger. He did not have special technology or secret information. I do not know, sir, he said honestly. I just looked at it differently. Differently how? Tejo struggled to explain. I imagined myself as the enemy. I asked what I would do if I were losing. What desperate move might I try? And when I asked that question, the answer seemed obvious. Obvious, General Kryn repeated. To you, perhaps. Not to anyone else. Maybe that is because I am human. General Kryn raised one eyebrow. What does being human have to do with it? Tejo looked at the general. For the first time, he did not feel afraid. He felt something else. Pride, maybe. Or just the simple confidence of knowing he was right. Humans have been fighting each other for a very long time, he said. Thousands of years. Millions of battles. Every generation, we get a little better at war. We learn from our mistakes. We study our enemies. We adapt. Other species have fought wars too, General Kryn said. The Valorians have a proud military tradition. Yes, sir. But how many civil wars have the Valorians fought? General Kryn paused. Civil wars? None. Valorians do not fight each other. That would be barbaric. Exactly. Tejo nodded. You fight other species, other civilizations. But humans fight humans. We know ourselves better than anyone. We know how to think like the enemy because, for most of our history, we were the enemy. The general was silent for a long moment. His expression slowly changed from anger to something else. something that might have been respect. You are saying that because humans are violent, they understand violence better. I am saying that humans have experience. We have made every mistake. We have learned from every failure. The things I showed you today, I learned from battles that happened on Earth thousands of years ago. The flanking maneuver? We call it the canny technique. A human general named Hannibal used it to destroy a Roman army. That was over 2,000 years before we even knew other species existed. General Kryn looked at the display again, at the ruins of his fleet, at the victory that should have been his. 2,000 years, he said quietly. Your species was fighting like this 2,000 years ago. Yes, sir. And we have not stopped since. The classroom remained silent. But the silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence of minds being opened, of old beliefs being questioned. General Kryn turned to face the class. 200 students looked back at him with wide eyes. Remember this moment, he said. His voice was strong again, commanding. Remember what you saw here today. Remember that wisdom can come from anywhere, even from a species we thought we understood. He turned back to Tejo. We are not finished, human. You and I have much to discuss, but not here. Come to my office tomorrow morning. There is something I want to show you. Without waiting for a response, General Kryn walked out of the classroom. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Tejo stood alone at the front of the room, wondering what had just happened. Wondering what tomorrow would bring. Hannah was the first to break the silence. She stood up and started clapping. One by one, other students joined her. Soon, the entire class was applauding. For the first time since he arrived at the academy, Tejo did not feel invisible. 3 days passed like any other days at the Galactic Military Academy. Tejo attended his classes. He ate his meals alone. He studied late into the night. He tried very hard not to think about the message he had sent, but sometimes, in quiet moments, the worry crept back. What if someone traced the message to him? What if the teachers thought he was being disrespectful? What if they expelled him from the academy? He told himself he was being foolish. The message was anonymous. Even if anyone read it, they would probably just ignore it. A correction from an unknown student about a famous general's tactics? It would go straight to the trash on the morning of the 4th day. Tejo walked into his advanced tactics class and took his usual seat in the back corner. The room was already filling with students. Hannah sat 2 rows ahead of him. She turned and gave him a small wave. He waved back. The class was taught by Professor Venn, an old creth with gray scales and tired eyes. He had been teaching at the academy for over 200 years. He moved slowly and spoke softly, but his mind was still sharp. Students respected him, even if his lectures were sometimes boring. Professor Venn was writing something on the holographic board when the door opened. Everyone expected another student running late. No one expected what walked through that door. General Kryn stepped into the classroom. He had to duck his head to fit through the doorway. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His silver skin seemed to glow under the classroom lights. His pale eyes moved slowly across the room, looking at each student one by one. The entire class went silent. It was not the normal silence of students paying attention. It was the silence of fear. Even Professor Venn stopped writing and took a step back. General Kryn was not supposed to be here. He had given his lecture 3 days ago. He was a busy man with battles to plan and armies to command. Why would he come to a simple classroom full of students? General Kryn, Professor Venn said, his voice shaking slightly. This is an unexpected honor. How may I help you? The general did not look at the professor. His eyes continued to scan the room. They moved from face to face, from species to species. They passed over the tall Valorians, the scaled Kreth, the crystalline beings from the outer worlds. "I am looking for someone," General Kryn said. His voice filled the room like thunder. 3 days ago, someone in this academy sent me a message. A correction. About my tactics at the Battle of the Red Nebula. A murmur went through the class. Students looked at each other with confused expressions. What was the general talking about? Who would be brave enough to correct him? Tejo felt his blood turn to ice. His hands gripped the edge of his desk. He wanted to sink into his chair and disappear. This could not be happening. This was not real. The message was sent anonymously, General Kryn continued. He took a step forward, and the students in the front row leaned back in their seats. But our technology officers traced its origin. It came from someone in this class. The murmuring grew louder. Students whispered to each other. Eyes darted around the room, trying to guess who the guilty person might be. Hana turned around and looked at Tejo. Her face was pale. She knew. Of course, she knew. She was the only one who knew. Tejo gave her a tiny shake of his head. Please do not say anything, he thought. Please just stay quiet. General Kryn raised one of his 4 hands, and the room fell silent again. I want to know, he said, and his voice dropped to a dangerous tone. Who is the student that dared to correct my tactics? Who looked at my greatest victory and thought they knew better? Show yourself. No one moved. No one breathed. The silence was so heavy, it felt like a physical weight pressing down on everyone. Tejo's heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. He could feel sweat forming on his forehead. Every instinct told him to stay quiet. Stay invisible. Let the moment pass, but he could not lie to himself. He had sent that message. Right or wrong, he had to face the consequences. Slowly, very slowly, Tejo stood up. 200 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He heard gasps from around the room. Whispers started immediately. The human? It cannot be. Is this a joke? General Kryn's pale eyes locked onto Tejo. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The general was twice Tejo's height. He had 4 arms that could break a human in half. He had fought in wars that lasted decades. He was a legend, and Tejo was just a student. A human student. Nobody special. You, General Kryn said. It was not a question. You are the one who sent the message. Tejo swallowed hard. His throat was dry. Yes, sir. I am. The general began to walk up the stairs between the rows of seats. Students moved aside like water parting before a ship. No one wanted to be in his path. Tejo forced himself to stand straight. He was terrified, but he would not show it. Humans might be new to the galaxy, but they had their pride. General Kryn stopped 2 steps below Tejo. Even standing lower, he was still taller than the human. He looked down at Tejo with an expression that was impossible to read. You claim my formation at the Red Nebula had a flaw, the general said. You claimed that my curved line could have been broken by an attack from the left flank. You claimed that I could have lost. Yes, sir, Tejo said. His voice was steady, even if his hands were shaking behind his back. That is what I claimed. Do you know how many battles I have fought? 12 major engagements, sir. 37 minor conflicts. 0 defeats. The general's eyes narrowed slightly. Was that surprise on his face? You have studied my record. I study everyone's record, sir. It is the only way I can keep up with the other students. General Kryn was silent for a moment. The entire class watched without making a sound. Professor Ven stood frozen near his desk, not knowing what to do. Hana was looking at Tejo with wide, worried eyes. She looked like she wanted to say something, to defend him somehow. But what could she say? Human, General Kryn said finally. What is your name? Taeho, sir. Taeho. The general repeated the name as if testing how it felt in his mouth. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. I meant no disrespect, sir. I only wanted to help. Help? The general's voice rose slightly. You think a human student can help a Valorian general? You think your primitive species understands war better than mine? Taeho felt anger rising in his chest. He pushed it down. Getting angry would not help him now. I think war is war, sir. It does not matter who is fighting. The same rules apply. The same mistakes can be made. General Kryn stared at him for a long, terrible moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It was the Battle of the Red Nebula. The same display from the lecture. The same curved formation. The same enemy positions. Show me, General Kryn said. Show me this flaw you claim to have found. Prove to me that you are not just a fool wasting my time. Taeho looked at the display. This was his chance. His only chance. If he failed now, he would be humiliated. Maybe expelled. His career would be over before it began. But if he succeeded, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. May I? He asked, gesturing toward the display. General Kryn nodded once. Taeho raised his hand and began to move the holographic pieces. The whole class watched in stunned silence as the human student prepared to challenge the greatest military mind of the generation. The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. It was the most famous school in all the known galaxies. Every year, thousands of young beings from hundreds of planets came here to learn the art of war. They came to become officers, commanders, and leaders. They came to protect their worlds. Taeho was one of them. He was human, from a small blue planet called Earth. Among the tall aliens with 4 arms, the creatures with scales and wings, and the beings made of living crystal, he looked very ordinary. He was not tall. He was not strong. He did not have special powers or extra limbs. He was just a human with brown eyes and black hair. Most aliens at the Academy did not think much of humans. Earth had only joined the Galactic Union 50 years ago. In the eyes of the older species, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. They were new. They were weak. They were not important. Taeho knew this. He felt it every day. When he walked through the halls, other students looked past him like he was invisible. When he raised his hand in class, teachers sometimes forgot to call on him. When he sat in the dining hall, no one sat next to him. But Taeho did not complain. He came here to learn, and that is what he did. Every night, he stayed up late reading old battle records. Every morning, he woke up early to study tactics and strategies. He read about wars that happened thousands of years ago on planets he had never heard of. He learned about famous generals and their victories. He memorized formations and movements. His only friend at the Academy was a girl named Hana. She was also human, also from Earth. She had come to the Academy 1 year before him. She knew how hard it was to be human in a place like this. You work too hard, Hana told him one evening. They were sitting in the small garden on the Academy's 3rd level. Fake stars glowed above them through the glass ceiling. You need to rest sometimes. Taeho shook his head. I cannot rest. I am already behind everyone else. The Valorians can process information 3 times faster than us. The Kreth have perfect memory. What do I have? I am just human. Hana smiled sadly. Being human is not a weakness, Taeho. Remember that. He wanted to believe her. He really did. But every day at the Academy made it harder. The next morning, something happened that would change everything. It was a normal day. Taeho sat in the back of the large lecture hall, with 200 other students. The room was shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up in circles around a central stage. On that stage stood a holographic display, showing a famous battle from the last Great War. The teacher that day was not a regular teacher. He was General Kryn of the Valorian Empire. He was one of the most famous military minds in the galaxy. He had won 12 major battles. He had written books that every officer had to read. His face was on posters in recruitment centers across 1,000 worlds. General Kryn was tall, even for a Valorian. He had 4 arms, silver skin, and eyes that glowed like pale moons. When he spoke, his voice was deep and powerful. Every student in the room sat perfectly still, afraid to even breathe too loudly. Today, General Kryn said, "I will show you the Battle of the Red Nebula. This was my greatest victory. Pay attention, because you will be tested on this." The holographic display came to life. Tiny ships appeared, moving through red clouds of space dust. General Kryn explained every movement, every decision. He showed how he had positioned his fleet in a curved formation. He showed how he had trapped the enemy between his ships and an asteroid field. He showed how he had won. The other students watched with wide eyes. They took notes. They nodded in admiration. This was military genius at work. But Taeho saw something different. At first, he thought he was wrong. He must be wrong. This was General Kryn, the greatest living commander. How could Taeho, a simple human student, see something the general had missed? He looked at the formation again. He studied the curved line of ships. He imagined what would have happened if the enemy had done something different. And there it was. A gap, a weakness, a mistake. If the enemy had sent even a small force to attack from the left side, General Kryn's formation would have broken. The curved line would have become a trap for his own ships. The victory could have easily become a disaster. Taeho's heart beat faster. He looked around the room. No one else seemed to notice. The other students were still nodding and smiling. The general was still talking proudly about his tactics. Should he say something? No, that was crazy. He was nobody. General Kryn was a legend. Besides, the battle had been won. What did it matter now if there was a small flaw? But the thought would not leave Taeho's mind. In war, small flaws killed people. If General Kryn used this same formation again, against a smarter enemy, he could lose. His soldiers could die. After the lecture, Taeho could not focus on anything else. He went to the library and found records of the Battle of the Red Nebula. He studied them for hours. He ran simulations on his personal computer. Every time, the result was the same. The flaw was real. That night, he told Hana what he had found. "You should say something," she said. "To who? General Kryn?" He would laugh at me. "Then submit it through the academy system. You can send corrections anonymously. The teachers will review it." Taeho thought about this. Anonymous submission. No one would know it was him. If he was wrong, nothing would happen. If he was right, maybe someone would fix the problem. He sat at his computer for a long time. His finger hovered over the send button. This was probably a mistake. He was probably wrong. A human finding a flaw in a Valorian general's tactics? Impossible. But what if he was right? Taeho closed his eyes and pressed the button. The message disappeared into the academy system. For a moment, nothing happened. The universe continued as before. Taeho went to bed and tried to forget about it. He did not know that his simple message would reach General Kryn himself. He did not know that the general would spend 3 days running his own simulations. He did not know that the general would discover that the human student was correct, and he certainly did not know that in 3 days, General Kryn would come looking for him. Taeho slept peacefully that night, unaware that his life was about to change forever. 1 year passed. It was both the longest and the shortest year of Taeho's life. He continued his classes at the academy. He studied tactics and strategy. He trained in simulations. He did everything the other students did. But he also did more. Much more. 3 times a week, he met with General Kryn. They analyzed battle plans. They discussed military history. They wargamed scenarios that might happen if the Unity attacked. Slowly, the general's staff grew to include more humans. Hannah joined them. Then 2 other human students. Then 3 more. General Kryn called them his Fresh Eyes Division. Other officers mocked the name at first. Who were these humans to advise a Valorian general? But when the Fresh Eyes found flaws in 12 different battle plans, the mocking stopped. When they predicted an enemy attack 3 days before it happened, the respect began. The Galactic Union was changing. Slowly, quietly, but definitely. Human military tactics were being studied at the highest levels. Earth's history was no longer seen as primitive violence, but as a valuable resource. Other species were starting to realize that the newcomers from the small blue planet had something to offer. And then the Unity attacked. It happened on a morning like any other. Taeho was in the academy library, reading about ancient siege warfare when the alarm sounded. Not the practice alarm that went off every month. The real one. The one that meant actual danger. All students to the assembly hall. All officers to battle stations. This is not a drill. Taeho closed his book and ran. The hallways were filled with confused students, rushing in every direction. He pushed through them, heading not for the assembly hall, but for the command center. The silver badge on his chest led him through every checkpoint. General Kryn was already there when he arrived. The command center was a massive room filled with holographic displays and busy officers. Every screen showed the same thing. Red markers flooding into Union space. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The Unity? Taeho asked, coming to stand beside the general. Yes, they attacked the Outer Rim colonies an hour ago. 5 systems hit simultaneously. They are faster than we expected. General Kryn's face was grim. Much faster. What is the response plan? The High Command is debating. The general's voice was bitter. They are arguing about formations and fleet positions while colonies burn. By the time they decide, it may be too late. Taeho looked at the displays. He watched the red markers move. He watched the scattered blue markers. Union ships respond too slowly in the wrong patterns, making the wrong choices. He saw the same old mistakes playing out on a galactic scale. They are using the standard defensive formation, he said quietly. The crescent. Yes, it is in all our textbooks. It is what every officer learns, and it has the same flaw. General Kryn nodded slowly. The same flaw you showed me a year ago. But now it is not a simulation. Now it is real. And I cannot make the High Command listen. Taeho thought for a moment. The displays showed chaos. Ships dying. Colonies falling. People screaming for help that was not coming. This was not a classroom exercise. This was war. Real war. The kind humans have been fighting for thousands of years. Sir, he said, may I make a suggestion? The general looked at him. Around them, officers rushed back and forth, shouting orders and receiving reports. No one was paying attention to the human student standing next to their commander. Speak. The High Command will not listen to new ideas. They are afraid. When people are afraid, they do what they know. They follow the textbooks. They make the same mistakes. Taeho paused. But you are not just any commander. You are General Kryn. You have more authority than anyone except the Supreme Admiral. If you act first and explain later, they will have to follow you. You are suggesting I disobey orders? I am suggesting you give the orders. Take command. Use what we have learned this year. Show them a different way. General Kryn was silent for a long moment. On the displays, another colony went dark. Another 1,000 lives lost. The Crescent Formation cannot win this battle, Taeho continued. But the tactics we discussed, the flanking maneuvers, the feigned retreats, the guerrilla strikes, they might. Humans have fought against superior enemies before. We have won against impossible odds. We know how to do this. And if you are wrong? If we fail? Then we fail while trying something new. We fail while fighting with all our intelligence and creativity. That is better than failing while repeating the same old mistakes. General Kryn looked at the displays one more time. He watched the red markers advance. He watched the blue markers fall back. He made his decision. Open a channel to all Union ships, he commanded. His voice was loud enough to cut through the chaos. Every officer in the room stopped and turned. Priority Alpha, from General Kryn, commanding authority over Sector 9. An officer hesitated. Sir, the High Command has not authorized. I am authorizing it now. Open the channel. The officer looked uncertain, but she obeyed. A moment later, General Kryn's voice was broadcasting to every ship in the region. All Union vessels, this is General Kryn. I am assuming tactical command of this engagement. Disregard previous orders. New formation protocols are being transmitted now. Follow them exactly. This is not a request. He turned to Taeho. You and your team. I need new formations. Now. Taeho nodded. He ran to a console and called up Hana and the other humans on the staff. They gathered around him, their faces pale but determined. The Crescent is not working, he said quickly. We need to adapt. Think about what we discussed. The Mongol tactics. The island-hopping strategies. The guerrilla principles. How do we apply them here, right now? Hana spoke first. We cannot match them in strength, so we should not try. Hit and run. Strike their weak points and retreat before they can respond. Another human, a young man named Jin, added, we should split our forces. Small groups are harder to catch than big fleets. If they chase one group, the others can attack from behind. A woman named Sumi pulled up a map of the local systems. There are asteroid fields here and here. Natural cover. If we position ships inside them, we can ambush Unity forces as they pass. Taeho took all their ideas and combined them into a single plan. It was messy. It was improvised. It was nothing like what the textbooks recommended, but it was human. He sent the plan to General Kryn. The general looked at it for exactly 3 seconds, then nodded. Transmit to all ships. Execute immediately. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Union ships scattered in all directions, confusing the Unity forces. They hid in asteroid fields and attacked from behind. They pretended to retreat, then turned and struck when the enemy extended too far. They did everything wrong according to the old rules and everything right according to the new ones. The Unity did not know how to respond. Their collective mind could not adapt quickly enough. They were used to enemies who fought in straight lines and predictable patterns. They were not prepared for chaos. They were not prepared for creativity. They were not prepared for humans. The battle lasted for 3 days. When it ended, the Unity forces had been pushed back. Not defeated, not yet, but stopped. The advance had ended. The colonies that survived had been saved, and the galaxy had learned something new. The reports that followed told the story. General Kryn had disobeyed orders. He had used untested tactics. He had trusted a human student to help him rewrite the rules of war. And he had won. The High Command was not happy at first. There were hearings. There were investigations. There were angry speeches about chain of command and proper procedure. but the results spoke louder than any speech. The unity had been stopped. Thousands of lives had been saved. And the tactics that made it possible had come from humans, from their history, their experience, their unique way of thinking about war. When the official recognition ceremony was held, Taeho stood on the stage beside General Kryn. He wore the uniform of a Union officer now, with the rank he had earned in battle. Hannah and the other humans from the Fresh Eyes division stood with him. General Kryn addressed the crowd. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched from the audience, and billions more watched through broadcasts across the galaxy. 1 year ago, the general said, a human student walked into my classroom and told me I was wrong. He showed me a flaw in my tactics that could have cost thousands of lives. At first, I was angry. My pride was wounded. But then I realized that he had given me a gift. The gift of seeing my mistakes. The gift of learning something new. He turned to look at Taeho. Humans have only been part of our galaxy for 50 years. In that time, we have treated them as children. We have ignored their history. We have dismissed their ideas. We thought we had nothing to learn from them. He paused. We were wrong. The crowd was silent, listening to every word. Humanity has been fighting wars for longer than most of our civilizations have existed. They have made every mistake possible, and they have learned from each one. Their history is not primitive. It is precious. It is a library of knowledge that we should have studied from the beginning. General Kryn reached out and placed one of his 4 hands on Taeho's shoulder. Today, I am proud to announce that human military tactics will be taught at every academy in the Union. Human advisors will be welcomed at every command level. Taeho did not sleep that night. He lay in his small bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. The classroom, the simulation, General Kryn's face when he saw his formation fall apart. What would happen tomorrow? Was this a trap? Was the general planning to punish him in private, away from witnesses? Or was there something else going on? Hannah came to his room early the next morning. She brought food from the dining hall because she knew he would forget to eat. You need to calm down, she said, watching him pace back and forth across his tiny room. You are going to make yourself sick. How can I be calm? General Kryn wants to see me, alone, in his office. This cannot be good. It might be good. Did you see his face at the end? He did not look angry. He looked impressed. Impressed? He looked like he wanted to break me in half with his 4 arms. Hannah shook her head. You do not know Valorians like I do. I have studied them. When they are truly angry, they become very quiet, very still. General Kryn was neither of those things. He was thinking, processing. That is different. Taeho stopped pacing and looked at his friend. You really think so? I know so. Now eat your breakfast. You have a meeting with the most famous general in the galaxy, and you cannot go on an empty stomach. Taeho forced himself to eat. The food tasted like nothing in his mouth, but he swallowed it anyway. Hannah was right. He needed his strength. At exactly 9 o'clock, Taeho stood outside General Kryn's office. It was on the top floor of the academy's main building, in a section that students were normally not allowed to enter. The door was tall and wide, designed for beings much larger than humans. He raised his hand to knock, but before he could, the door opened by itself. Enter, General Kryn's voice called from inside. Taeho stepped through the doorway and stopped in surprise. The office was not what he expected. He had imagined cold metal walls and military decorations. Instead, he found a warm space filled with books and artifacts from dozens of worlds. There were old weapons on the walls. There were maps spread across large tables. There were comfortable chairs and soft lighting. General Kryn sat behind a massive desk. In front of him was a holographic display showing something Taeho did not recognize. "Close the door," the general said. "Sit down." Taeho did as he was told. He sat in a chair that was much too big for him. His feet did not reach the floor. General Kryn studied him for a long moment. In the soft light of the office, he looked less terrifying than he had in the classroom. He looked almost tired. "I spent all night running simulations," the general said finally. "I tested your theory from every angle. I changed the numbers. I adjusted the conditions. I tried to prove you wrong." Taeho held his breath. And I could not. "Your analysis was correct. My formation at the Red Nebula had a fatal flaw. If the enemy commander had been smarter, I would have lost. My fleet would have been destroyed. Thousands of my soldiers would have died." He paused. "Because of my mistake." "Sir, I did not mean to. Let me finish." General Kryn raised one of his hands. "You did something yesterday that no one else has done in my entire career. You challenged me. You found a weakness that my own officers missed. You embarrassed me in front of 200 students." He paused again. "And you were right." Taeho did not know what to say. He stayed silent and waited. Double quotes. "Do you know what that means?" the general asked. "It means I have been teaching flawed tactics for years. Every officer who studied my formation learned something wrong. Every battle plan based on my methods might have the same weakness. How many lives could have been lost because of my pride? Sir, you could not have known. That is exactly the problem. I should have known. But I did not look. I did not question. I assumed I was right, because I had always been right before." General Kryn stood up from his desk and walked to a window. Outside, stars burned in the endless darkness of space. Pride is a dangerous thing for a commander. It blinds us. It makes us believe we are perfect. And when we believe we are perfect, we stop learning. He turned back to face Taeho. "You do not have that problem. Do you know why?" Taeho shook his head. "Because you have nothing to be proud of yet. You are young. You are human. Everyone in this academy thinks you are nothing special. So you do not have pride. You only have hunger. The hunger to learn. The hunger to prove yourself. That hunger made you look at my formation with fresh eyes. It made you see what everyone else missed." "I just wanted to help," Taeho said. "I did not want to cause trouble." "I know. And that makes it even more impressive." General Kryn walked back to his desk and touched a button. The holographic display changed. It now showed a galaxy map with dozens of blinking red points. "This is classified information. You cannot tell anyone what I am about to show you. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Good. These red points are areas of concern. Our intelligence suggests that a new enemy is rising in the outer systems. We do not know much about them yet. They call themselves the Unity. They are a collection of species who believe that individuality is weakness. They want to absorb all life into their collective. They have been quiet for years, building their strength. But now they are starting to move." Taeho looked at the map. There were a lot of red points. Too many. "If war comes," General Kryn continued, "it will be unlike anything the Galactic Union has faced before. The Unity does not think like normal enemies. They do not care about losses. They do not negotiate. They simply consume. We will need new tactics, new strategies, new ways of thinking. And you are telling me this because I need people who can see what others miss. People who can question old ideas. People who are hungry." The general looked directly at Taeho. "I want you to join my staff. Not as a student, as an advisor." Taeho's mouth fell open. "Me? But I am only a second-year student. I have not even graduated yet." You showed more insight in one day than most officers show in their entire careers. Graduation is just paperwork. What matters is the mind, and your mind is exactly what I need. But what about the other students? What about my classes? You will continue your classes. You will graduate with your peers. But in addition to your normal studies, you will work with me. You will analyze battle plans. You will look for weaknesses. You will do for the Galactic Union's military what you did for my Red Nebula formation. General Kryn paused. If you accept. Taeho's head was spinning. This morning, he had been afraid of being punished. Now he was being offered a position that most officers would kill for. Why me? He asked. There must be thousands of officers smarter than me. Officers with more experience. Officers who are not human. That is exactly the point. Those officers think like Valorians. They think like Krath. They think like every other species in the Union. They have been trained to think a certain way. You have not. Your mind is different. And different is what we need. General Kryn reached into his desk and pulled out a small badge. It was silver, shaped like a star, with the symbol of the Valorian Empire in the center. This is my personal insignia. Anyone who sees it will know you speak with my authority. Wear it, and no one will question why a human student is walking through classified sections or attending high-level meetings. He held the badge out to Taeho. Taeho looked at it for a long moment. This was not what he had expected when he came to the academy. He had hoped to graduate, maybe become a low-ranking officer, and slowly work his way up. He had never imagined anything like this, but he thought about Hannah's words. Being human is not a weakness. Maybe she was right. Maybe everything that made him different, his background, his history, his way of thinking was actually his greatest strength. He reached out and took the badge. I accept, he said. General Kryn nodded. For the first time, something that might have been a smile crossed his face. Good, then let us get to work. I want to show you something else. Something that will change the way you think about war. He pressed another button, and the holographic display changed again. This time, it showed not a map, but a collection of documents. Human documents. Military records from Earth. After you left yesterday, I did some research, General Kryn said. I looked into human military history. I found things I did not expect. The flanking maneuver you mentioned, the canny technique. I studied it. Then I studied more. And more. Do you know what I discovered? Taeho shook his head. I discovered that humans have been fighting wars longer than most species in the Union have existed. You have developed tactics that we never imagined. You have made mistakes that we have never made, and learned from them. Your military history is a treasure. A library of knowledge that the galaxy has ignored because we thought you were primitive. He looked at Taeho with new respect in his eyes. We were fools, and I do not intend to make that mistake again. Taeho felt something warm spread through his chest. Not pride, not yet, but something close. Something like hope. Then let us learn together, he said. General Kryn nodded. Yes, together. The Unity will not know what hit them. They spent the rest of the day going through Earth's military history. Taeho told the general about Sun Tzu and Napoleon, about Genghis Khan and Alexander. He explained guerrilla warfare and trench warfare, naval battles and air campaigns. He showed how humans had fought in every environment, against every kind of enemy, using every tool they could find. General Kryn listened to Everett.